Welcome back, everyone. In today's video, I will be breaking down a verse from the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. He who fixes the course of the stars of heaven, like sheep, shall pasture the gods altogether. The Enuma Elish is a product of the dark period of violence and war that followed the collapse of Bronze Age civilizations in the Near East, which happened sometime around 1200 BC. No one knows exactly what happened, probably a mixture of drought, natural disaster, and maybe even mass invasions. But what is for sure is that every civilization, including the Hittites, the Cypriots, the Mycenaeans, the Minoans, and others, completely disappeared. Some key exceptions were the Babylonians and the powerful Egyptians, who would never quite recover to their old kingdom power ever again. In the ensuing chaos, probably around 1000 BC, the Enuma Elish was consolidated and written down in the form we know it today. Before that, written down in different pieces from a long-standing oral tradition, but in its newer form, written down in 1100 BC, one key thing that had changed was the central narrative of the rise of Marduk. Whereas Marduk before was one god among many, he had now become the supreme god. This became the central narrative arc to the Enuma Elish, which had before been a plurality, a looser distribution of many narratives about the genealogies of gods, their rise and fall, and so on. But now Marduk, the creator-ruler of the universe, emerges. He established his supremacy by battling and ultimately destroying Tiamat, mother dragon goddess of chaos. He dismembers her body and arranges its pieces as the world. He sets them down as the rivers, the mountains, the forests, the sky, and so on. This image is a precursor to the Old Testament wherein Yahweh slays Leviathan who lives in the sea, or, in its more popular tame form, Yahweh's subordination of Eve and the serpent in Eden. Notice at Eden, the two aspects of the mother dragon have been split into Mother Eve and a snake. This image also forms the basis of a Western metaphysic: order taming chaos. The Enuma Elish version is the most violent rendition of that eternal, fundamental dialectic, almost certainly because of the historical period in which it was conceived. It was likely a projection of Babylonian civilization's collective desire for order in the post-Bronze Age collapse world, even if that seemed well out of sight. The violence of the Enuma Elish reflected the urgent need of a rescuing force capable of appropriately managing chaos. And so Marduk rises to this call, slaying the once passive and nurturing mother goddess turned mother dragon, and creates the world out of her body. This is the equivalent of the act of masculine spirit condensing feminine chaos into stable matter, or, put in more modern quantum mechanical terms, an observer, consciousness, turning waves of light into particles by act of observation. This creates the world. The cosmic situation before observation is an ocean of potentia awaiting some force to snap it into shape. The act of observation breaks or dismembers the dark unity, Mother Earth, into a visible, ordered multiplicity: the rivers, the mountains, the forest, the sky, and so on. In psychological terms, the story of Marduk and Tiamat is the story of consciousness emerging out of its eternal sleep inside of the unconscious. In his book, Fear of the Feminine, Eric Newman describes an interesting psychological pattern that correlates to this myth. And this is the mysterious and fascinating part of myths for me. They reflect pre-factual patterns that inform the factual domains of physics, history, and psychology. They are, in a real psychological sense, concrete descriptions of the psychological structure of the mind. And so here it is from Eric Newman. He tells us that the first year of an infant's life is a continuation of containment inside its mother. The child is psychologically still in utero, even though physically outside of it. The mother is its world, and that world operates in service to every need of the child. But after the first year, the child must break free of this containment. Psychologically, the child's ego must develop and gain some foothold of independence, or it risks perpetual containment inside of the mother. The myths of the devouring mother entail the dangers of perpetual containment. Think of the witch in the woods and Hansel and Gretel, the result of which might be the 40-year-old virgin incel living in his mother's basement. Mythically, the loving all-mother necessarily transforms into the terrible mother. She turns into a dragon queen who must be overcome by the ego. The all-mother, who is the child's first world, gives way to its second world, which is chaos in comparison. The second world does not heed immediately to the internal desires of the child. This world must be ordered according to its desires, and so the child's ego arises to deliver that order. An identity, a personality, is born. This ego is symbolized as Marduk. Marduk, the pole who fixes the course of the stars of heaven, the axis around which the universe revolves, the epicenter of order. The energy inhabiting our bodies that moves our monkey flesh, which we might call spirit or consciousness, is this pole. Isn't it true that you see the world happening around you? You appear to be at the center of it. Your physical and mental orientation operates from the center of everything. You are the maypole around which everything orbits. Marduk is this energy, the shepherd who pastures the gods all together. Freud and Jung discovered that the ancient gods were living forces of the psyche, archetypal patterns of behavior. Zeus equals the king, order; Hephaestus, smith, creativity; Aphrodite, love; lust; Athena, warrior, and so on. The gods' collective cooperation equated to a stable, but not stagnant, cosmos. In the same way, the collective cooperation of the parts of our psyche equates to a stable, but not stagnant and boring life. The fathers of modern psychology noticed with alarm that the gods, ignored or forgotten by modern man, fell underground, degenerated, and arose as disorders of the mind. Phobias, anxiety, and neuroses, without a unifying force to thread them together, like Marduk, or in the Greek cosmogony, Zeus. They threaten to destabilize the psyche, pulling it apart with their competing desires. In our own lives, we are, like it or not, called to be this pole, a magnetic force that attracts the chaotic elements of life into cooperative orbit around us, and the shepherd, a guide that corrals our disparate and sometimes competing desires and needs, gods, into a unity so that we can move toward our goals in adherence to the supreme value. Fixing the course of the stars of heaven and shepherding the gods together is in some way the key to an enjoyable life. You're already doing it by your nature of existing. Knowing this power to be inherent, you can now take on life's greatest and most difficult responsibilities and watch as life gives way to you, rewarding you for the courage to take the leap, but never ceasing to test you along the way to make sure you're worthy.